Good morning. So today we are going to talk about lecture number 7.6. This is going to be the terminal lecture on the module of grinding temperature. So first let us recap what we have done thus far. So we have learned how to measure grinding temperature. Using different techniques. What are the techniques? Just to remind you, one is embedded thermocouple technique. Then we have used dynamic thermocouple technique. Using both one pole and two pole method. Other than that, we have indicated what are the other methods which can be used. Say for example, IR camera technique can be used. Then optical fiber based temperature measurement can be done. So these have been discussed. Even we have discussed a procedure to measurement of thermal grinding temperature based on telemetry technique, where the sensor is embedded within the grinding wheel. So this is the first part, measurement. Second thing that we have learned is that the temperature, the grinding temperature, why is it so high, and what is its effect? Its effect means what is the effect of high temperature on work material. These are the things we have learned. The third thing that we have learned is the most important thing, that is estimation. That is estimation of grinding temperature. Grinding temperature estimation has been done for dry conventional grinding. It has been done for dry super abrasive grinding. And it has also been done for super abrasive grinding with fluid application. That means grinding fluid application. This particular one can also be useful for estimating temperature for conventional wheel. Now, estimating of grinding temperature is very essential. How does it help? It helps reduce number of experiments that you have to carry out in the industry or for academic research. So if you can estimate your grinding temperature, particularly in industry, lot of problems are solved. So what we have not done as yet, we have said temperature is very high. We can estimate it, but now we need to learn how to control the high grinding zone temperature. This we have to learn, and that's what we are going to do today. Why do we need to do that? Even there is a connection. The connection is here. If you do not control your high grinding temperature, then the effect of high grinding temperature of the workpiece, it is going to creep in, and those effects are not good. It can lead to hardening, which may not be desirable. It may lead to annealing. Most problematic thing is that it may lead to incorporation of tensile residual stress. And if it leads to incorporation of tensile residual stress, then you have a major problem. So, control of grinding temperature is very much required. So how to control grinding temperature, and what are the techniques that can be arrived at, that we are going to do. So please try to understand. I will not go into the technology part of it, how to implement it and all that, but we are going to highlight what can be done and whether they can be traced back to the analysis part, or rather what we will do is that we will use the analysis, and from the analysis we will try to see whether technology directions can be evolved. The first one is use of super abrasive wheel. As you can see, this is the estimation of temperature. This is the basic equation for estimation of temperature. This particular parameter belongs to the workpiece material, so you cannot control this very much. This is the contact length, this is VW. So definitely what you can see is that contact parameter, that is process parameters, can be changed to bring down temperature. But the major thing it is proportional to is the how much amount of heat is entering the workpiece. So if you want to bring down temperature, somehow this has to be brought down. Now what is QW? QW is one of the contributor, or one of the parameter which signifies where the total heat goes. So this is the total heat flask. Some part of it is taken by the workpiece, some part of it is taken by the chip, some part of it is entering the grinding wheel, and a part of it is taken by the fluid away, that is grinding fluid. It is taken away by the grinding fluid. So our task is to reduce QW. So definitely QW would be reduced if I can somehow reduce QT. What is QT? QT is UG into material removal rate divided by contact area. That means grinding zone area. So UG into MRR divided by LC into BW. Now without touching this or this, because they govern material removal rate, if you can somehow bring down UG, that would be fabulous. If you can bring down QT, if you want to bring down QT, somehow you bring down UG. How to do that? For doing that, let us go back. UG is equal to amount of energy that you require for ploughing, amount of energy that you require for primary rubbing, and amount of energy which you require for chip formation. This energy you cannot bring down. Say for example, roughly this is around 13.6 joule per millimeter cube for steel. Long back we have given a thumb rule that UCH in joule per millimeter cube can be arrived at. It is a thumb rule. The Young's modulus of the material in GPa divided by 14. So this is a thumb rule. So you cannot touch this. This is not touchable. So if you want to bring down UG, the ploughing energy and the primary rubbing energy has to be brought down. How can they be brought down? They can be brought down provided you use sharper grids, and that is possible if you use super abrasive grids instead of conventional grids. So this is one approach that has to be taken. So what is the approach? You have to bring down temperature. So what do? Somehow you bring down QW. So to bring down QW, what has to be done? QT has to be brought down. So if you want to bring down QT, then UG has to be reduced. UG can only be reduced by reducing the ploughing and the primary rubbing component, that is the specific ploughing energy and specific primary rubbing energy. That can be brought down provided you use sharper grits. So it is better to use super abrasive grits instead of conventional grits. That will bring down your specific grinding energy. That in turn will bring down QT. As QT comes down, QW is also going to come down. Now I do not have space. The other aspect I have not discussed, so let me discuss that. I have to create some space. Give me some time. So the second aspect of use of super abrasive wheel that we have not discussed. So let us discuss that. So let us start once again. You want to bring down this, so you have to bring it down. So one aspect, one of them is bring down QT. That has already been discussed. But QW can also be brought down provided any one of them is increased, and QS can be increased by use of super abrasive wheel. Please try to recall RWS is 1 plus 0.97 kg divided by beta W root over RE VS minus 1, where most important thing is kg is the thermal conductivity of the abrasive grit. Thermal conductivity of CBN is around 250 to 400 SI unit, that is watt per meter per degree Kelvin, and for diamond it is around 2000 plus. So you can understand how large are they as compared to kg of, that is thermal conductivity of alumina and silicon carbide. Alumina and silicon carbide, I do not recall the numbers at this moment. I believe silicon carbide is around tens of watt per meter per degree Kelvin, and alumina is possibly 3.5. I do not recall, it's 3.5 to 5 watt per meter per degree Kelvin, but a part of my mind is also saying it could be 35. I am not very sure of this, but as you can see, even if it is around 10, 20, 30, it is much less as compared to CBN wheel. Now, as I said earlier in my earlier discussion, I would just like to remind you, RWS is QW divided by QW plus QS. So it is better that RWS is as small as possible. Okay, so for that particular reason, the kg has to be large. This particular quantity has to be large, and this one, this is the edge radius. It should be as small as possible, and for super abrasive grits, edge radius is much less as compared to conventional grits. So this is the other way you can reduce cutting temperature by use of super abrasive wheels. Now, this we have done earlier. I would like to once again reiterate, we did not discuss it in so much of details. If your QT is constant, then once again QW can be reduced if other quantities can be increased. Already we have talked about QS. Now let us talk about QF. QF is the amount heat flask taken away by the fluid. This is, so if this has to be increased, there are two ways to increase it. What are those two ways? One is either increase HF or you increase theta. Increasing theta we will discuss in the next slide. First, let us look at HF. HF was calculated as just a minute. It was calculated like this. This calculation had lot of assumptions. Assumptions were that it was done at a particular position on the hot plate. This was a boundary layer. It is not turbulent and all that thing they were considered. But despite that, this particular equation is very important. So HF, it has to be increased. KF has to be increased. So you choose a particular grinding fluid where its KF is large. So this particular thing indicates that water-based fluids are better. But there is one more issue. This particular equation is valid only when theta is less than theta flame boiling temperature. If flame boiling takes place, then HF automatically becomes very, very small. So this equation is no longer valid. QF, there is no QF if theta is more than flame boiling temperature. So that once again, so this particular criteria says something else. What does it say? It says use a fluid whose flame boiling temperature is high, and this recommendation leads to use of straight or neat oils. Here there is a third way to look at it. This third way of looking at it is a new concept. A lot of research has already been done in this particular direction, and this is called, is there any artificial way of increasing KF? That can be done using a group of fluids which are called nanofluids. In nanofluids, you take a base fluid and add very small percentage of nanoparticle. How much small? 0.25 to 1% by volume, by weight you add. Once you do that, the thermal conductivity of the fluid enhances a lot. But there is an issue with this use of nanofluids. What is the issue? There is an issue with using this nanofluid. What is the issue? Issue is that these nanoparticles are very, very costly. If they are very, very costly, then the cost of nanofluid would be enormous. And because of that, you cannot use, if you are using nanofluids in grinding as a grinding coolant, you cannot use it at the same flow rate for normal grinding fluids. So what you have to do, let me take a different color. It would be easy for you to trace it back. If you are using, where am I? Okay, there is some space. If you are using nanofluids, then it has to be used at a much less flow rate. And this has given rise to a particular form of technology, or it has used a particular form. I should not say it has given rise to. It has used a particular technology which is called minimum quantity cooling lubrication. It is also known as small quantity cooling lubrication, where very small amount of fluid is used. In case of normal fluid, you apply 5 liter per minute, whereas in MQCL you tend to apply very small, 20 to 500 milliliter per hour. So this is the flow rate. By doing this, what you do is that you get a lot of advantage. But from nanofluid point of view, I would like to say, nanofluid, why we are proposing nanofluid? By adding nanoparticles, the thermal conductivity of the fluid can be enhanced. If you do that, what happens? If you do that, then Kf increases, Hf increases. Over and above, nanofluids are costly because you are adding nanoparticles. Once you are adding nanoparticles, then the flow rate has to be reduced. So MQCL, in MQCL technology, very small quantity of fluid is applied. How it becomes effective, I am not going into that. You have to read standard papers on MQCL on your own. But it can be effective even at such a small flow rate, and because of that, despite that small flow rate, because of use of nanoparticles, HF can be enhanced because Kf goes up. Now, once again, I do not have space, so I have to create space. So please stay with me. Okay. So what we have discussed thus far is increasing HF by increasing KF. HF equation was 2 times KF divided by delta. What is this? This is the thickness of thermal boundary layer, and this thickness can be reduced provided you increase U infinity. U infinity, please go to our previous video, you will understand what is it. It is the free stream velocity of your grinding fluid. That means if the fluid velocity has to be increased, fluid velocity U infinity is roughly equal to, from Bernoulli's equation, is this. So you have to go for higher pressure to increase higher velocity, get higher fluid velocity. Once you get higher fluid velocity, this reduces. Once this reduces, this one increases. But here one more thing has to be talked about. In machining, when we say high pressure cooling, typically the application pressure is 200 to 100 to 200 bar. But here in case of grinding, your high pressure cooling is hardly at 10 to 20 bar. This pressure is not increased. So let me write down somewhere, 10 to 20 bar, you do not go beyond that. If you go beyond that, then what happens? I do not know whether I have mentioned it earlier. You have a problem of loss of spindle power. High pressure coolant or grinding fluid, when it is applied at the grinding zone, it provides some kind of hydrodynamic drag on the grinding wheel. So when the grinding wheel rotates, it has to overcome that hydrodynamic drag produced by the grinding fluid. And if the pressure is very high, lot of spindle power is wasted in overcoming that hydrodynamic pressure. So hydrodynamic drag. So 10 to 20 bar has been industrially accepted number. In industry, no one accepts a pressure higher than that. If you increase the pressure, more than 50 to 60% of the spindle power is wasted in overcoming the hydrodynamic drag. So in grinding, you will not see a pressure of 100 to 200 bar fluid being applied. What if you apply? If you apply, definitely its cooling ability would enhance drastically. However, most of the spindle power would be lost in overcoming the hydrodynamic drag. Next one. So we stay with increasing QF. So QF was HF into theta. This HF has to be increased, that we have discussed. Theta has to be increased, we have discussed. This theta is nothing but theta W minus theta ambient. But by physics, this is theta W minus theta fluid. That means our assumption till now was theta fluid equal to theta ambient. So if your ambient temperature is 20 degree, your fluid temperature is 20 degrees C. In industry, the temperature within the coolant tank is more than 40 to 50 degrees centigrade, because workshop places, particularly in summer in India, is rather hot. Throughout India, if you are not in the very northern part. Second of all, the grinding fluid is applied, there is lot of splashing, and this also raises the temperature of the grinding fluid. So grinding fluid goes to 50 degrees centigrade. So what you are assuming as 20 degrees centigrade easily goes to 50 degrees centigrade. Once it happens, this particular quantity reduces, but you need to increase it. How do you increase it? By reducing it further. So theta FL has to be reduced further. And how do you do that? By introducing a chiller in the fluid circuit, in the grinding fluid circuit, and you chill your fluid temperature to around 5 degrees centigrade to 6 degrees centigrade and keep it there when it is being applied. So use of chilled coolant can be used. From this basic concept of chilling of coolant, another set of technologies has evolved, and those are called cryogenic cooling, where liquid nitrogen is used as a coolant, and liquid nitrogen temperature is minus 196 degrees centigrade. So you can imagine, if you are using liquid nitrogen, how much the cooling effect of the fluid would increase, and that will enable lot of fluid. There are a lot of controversy in using liquid nitrogen coolant, but as a technology it has been proven by several groups. It is being used commercially, particularly in America. There is a company called Air Products. I do not know whether they use Limited or something like this. So Air Products is an American company, and they use cryogenic cooling primarily in machining. I do not know whether they have developed technology in grinding or not, but in research environment, in academic area or industrial research, the technology is ready. And Air Products, they have adopted the technology for machining of difficult to machine materials, and they are selling this technology for machining of difficult to machine materials like titanium alloys, Inconels, and all those. So this is another offshoot of technology from which can be traced back, or I would say from this equation one can get technology direction, and one is cryogenic cooling. Now there are certain problems in grinding. So whatever we have talked about, they are control strategies. Now I am coming to some specific problems in grinding. These problems are more so in case of vitrified wheel. Vitrified wheel has void or porosity, and these are primarily interconnected pores or voids, and this wheel is rotating at a very high RPM. So this is your grinding wheel, and these are pores. Because these are pores, after some time air which is here at the pore, they will start coming out. They will start come out because of they will experience centrifugal force because of the rotation of the spindle or wheel. Once it happens, it will start sucking air through its face and through the bore. This is the bore on which the grinding wheel is mounted on the spindle, and this cycle will continue. What is the cycle? That air will come out of the pore, and those void spaces which are filled with air, they would be replenished by sucking air through the face. And because of that, around the grinding wheel, there would be a stiff air boundary layer. So what is the problem with this air boundary layer? The problem is when you are grinding and applying coolant, this coolant would not be able to penetrate this air boundary layer easily. So typically I have mentioned you are applying 5 liters per minute. Hardly a small percentage of it would be able to reach the grinding zone. So if the grinding fluid cannot reach the grinding zone, there is no point in applying grinding fluid, or effectiveness of the grinding fluid is lost. So this is a major problem. Is this a problem in case of metal bonded wheels? Is this a problem in single layer wheel? Possibly not. But this is a major problem in case of porous wheels like vitrified and resin bonded wheel, particularly vitrified wheel, where voids are interconnected. So how do you do it? How do you solve this problem? One way of solving this is that painting the face with silicon layer. So what you do, you paint this particular face as well as the bore with the silicon paint. So once you paint it, air would come out initially when you are rotating it, but these air would not be replenished. So stiff air boundary layer which is formed would be much less effective. Why would it be less effective? Because there is no continuous supply of air from the periphery of the grinding wheel. Air is not coming out of the periphery of the grinding wheel. Why is it not coming out? Because fresh air cannot be sucked in so easily because the bore is painted and face of the grinding wheel is painted with a silicon paint. So once you paint it, it would not be able to absorb, it would not be able to allow so much of air to be sucked in. If air cannot be sucked in, as you use the wheel, air would not be coming out of the periphery of the wheel, and the stiffness of the air boundary layer would not be so high because there is no air coming out of the grinding wheel. So this is one technique. There is another technique. We do not do anything with the formation of air boundary layer. We let it form. So there is a air boundary layer which has already formed around the grinding wheel. So wherever you apply your coolant, at that particular position, somehow this formation of air boundary layer has to be prevented. To prevent that, what you do is something like this. You put a barrier or a deflector so that the air boundary layer which is forming gets deflected. So this is typically a cardboard deflector which is lightly pressed against the grinding wheel. This is a consumable part. It does not lead to any wheel loading. It does not lead to any power consumption. It doesn't affect your grinding process. But what it does is very nice. What it does is that you have your grinding wheel. It simply deflects the air boundary layer. Because it deflects the air boundary layer, the chance of the grinding fluid reaching the actual grinding zone, it increases tremendously. As it increases, your effectiveness of the cooling action enhances. So this is one more technique. You might say, can I not do a silicone painting along with this? Very good thinking process. So along with this, what you can do is that simultaneously you can paint the face as well as the bore with a silicone paint, and the effectiveness of the grinding fluid reaching the grinding zone would be multiplied because of the synergic interaction between face painting with silicon carbide and deflection of the air boundary layer using a cardboard. Next one is high pressure cooling jet. What is this? This is once again an attempt to disturb the steep air boundary layer. How do you do that? There is a high pressure thin cleaning jet. This is not for cooling. This is a cleaning jet. This technology was developed, and this is thin. Thin means its diameter is less. This cleaning jet pressure can be as high as 20 to 40 bar. With this cleaning jet, this particular technology was derived or was implemented with a completely different thing in mind. This cleaning jet used to remove any wheel loading by removing the accumulated chip material. This was the purpose of the cleaning jet. It used to keep the surface of the grinding wheel clean and devoid of any accumulation of chip particle. But it has been seen this cleaning jet is not only effective in reducing wheel loading, but it also disturbs the formation of air boundary layer. As it disturbs the formation of air boundary layer, the actual cooling jet got lot of benefit out of it. It could reach the grinding zone and provide cooling action. So this is another technology, and this is a very interesting technology. People say that if you cannot change the habit of somebody else, some of your friend, you try to join them and then use that bad habits to your advantage and to his advantage. This is a very philosophical word, but this is something like this. So what is this? You use a spindle. It is rather difficult to draw using This is the retaining nut. This is the other side of the spindle. Spindles, you use a spindle which is hollow. So this spindle is hollow. And you flood this area with fluid and you connect these particular hollow spindle which is filled with fluid with small radial holes. So what happens? There is a revolving fluid coupling which allows supply of coolant while it is rotating. So this coolant would get sucked in because of the centrifugal action, because of the rotation of the fluid, and instead of air coming in, this fluid will start coming in. This fluid will start coming out. Instead of air coming out, this fluid will start coming out from the periphery of the wheel, periphery of the grinding wheel. So when you are grinding, instead of stiff air boundary layer, that air is now being replaced by fluid, grinding fluid. So there is a fine layer of atomized grinding fluid which is coming from all direction. And when you grind, your grinding zone is supplied with fluid. Why? Because fluid is coming out of the grinding wheel. Why is it coming out? Because from the bore, the fluid is sucked in. How come to the bore fluid is sucked in? Because there is a specially designed spindle which is hollow and which has radial holes, and that particular specially designed spindle, the hole inside is always flooded with grinding fluid, and because of the rotation of the grinding wheel and the spindle, these grinding fluids are sucked in and they are thrown out. They are thrown out from all direction, and this is known as through wheel cooling or ZZ method of cooling. This was developed long back, but however in the industry it was not accepted to that extent. Its effectiveness in controlling temperature is not an issue. It generates huge amount of aerosol or atomized fluids in the grinding environment, and that becomes a health hazard to the operators. The amount of aerosol generation is so huge. There are two issues. The grinding zone cannot be visualized, it cannot be seen, and second of all, it becomes a health hazard to the operator, because soluble oil, neat oil, fine aerosol particles, if you inhale, you will understand how much you will immediately you will feel suffocation. So this is the problem. You might say, those who would go through the standard, through the literature to study MQCL, that MQCL also generates fine particles. Yes, MQCL also generates fine particles, but that fine particle generation is only at the grinding zone. The volume is not so high. So that can be tolerated and easily sucked out of the grinding zone using sucking technology or using a sucking device. But in case of ZZ method of cooling, that is very, very difficult. So that's it. This is the end of our module on grinding temperature. From Saturday onwards, we will start the next module. Basically, we will jump one module and we will go to wheel wear, and we will come back to surface integrity after completing wheel wear. However, for Saturday, half an hour you have to devote for an assignment. So this is the assignment. This is the assignment that you have to submit. You have to submit by 17/11/2020. 17/11/2020. Let us see what is it. Not 17. 7/11/2020 is Saturday. So Saturday you have to submit by night, by 22 hours in the night. Just a minute. So this assignment has to be submitted by Saturday 22 hours. And when you are going to do it, once again, I am not taking any time from your other schedule, so that complaint should not come at all. I have given you 9 to 9:30 time in the morning, that is during the class hour, to solve this particular assignment. This assignment has been solved already for you. In that, distribution of theta was given as a plus by plus cy square within the thermal boundary layer. But in this particular assignment, theta has been assumed to vary as using a cubic power law rather than the quadratic or power law. So this is the way you have solved I have solved the problem in lecture number 7.5. The same way you have to solve it. So as I said, so here the fluid temperature is given as 20 degrees centigrade. I hope so. Where is it? 20 degrees centigrade. Kf has been given as 0.6 watt per meter per degree Kelvin. This is the hot plate. The workpiece temperature is theta W. Thermal boundary layer is given as 75 micron. Let me check once again. Yes, where is it? 75 micron. So this is your thickness of the thermal boundary layer. However, the most important thing is, as I have just told you, temperature variation within the boundary layer is A plus By plus Cy cube instead of square. You require three sets of boundary conditions. One is theta equal to theta W at y equal to 0. This is your y axis. This is your x axis. This is the first boundary condition. Second boundary condition is theta equal to theta FL at y equal to this. And the third boundary condition is the gradient of temperature with respect to y is 0 at y equal to this. This is the gradient at y equal to 0, but we are not talking about y equal to 0. It is y equal to delta th. So this is the gradient which is 0. So these are the three boundary conditions that you have to implement and solve it. What you have to solve? You have to solve for HF as a function of KF and this. And once you get the equation, you have to put the values and find out how much it is in numerical value. To finding out numerical value, you require the value of KF which is given and delta TH has been given. So all you have to do is that, as we have calculated or derived an equation like this, you have to derive a similar equation. This has to be once again handwritten. This will not take more than 20 minutes. I have given you half an hour time. Those who are very concerned about their use of time, they may do it on Saturday 9 to 9:30 and submit it by Saturday 10 o'clock. Others, those who have spare time for this particular subject, those who can devote 20 minutes of their time for this particular subject, you can do it any day before 7/11/2020, 22 hours. Others can use, those who are concerned about their utilization of time, important time, they can do it from 9 to 9:30. Thank you so much. So we will meet again on Saturday at 9:30. As you might have observed that I am not doing synchronous teaching. And second thing you might have observed is that I am not using camera. My camera is no longer working. So that is the problem. Even for asynchronous previously recorded videos, I am not using my camera to that extent. Somehow my camera, I should not say it is not working, it is working intermittently. So I have stopped using the camera. I could have still used Microsoft Teams and I could have taken synchronous classes. I think synchronous classes are better for me. I like taking them. But I faced internet issues from my site where I take these classes. So I am not able to take synchronous classes as well. So I am making videos when I can, when I get time, and I am uploading them. Thank you so much for your time. So we will once again meet on Saturday, whether through synchronous class or asynchronous class. That depends on how the problem is solved at my end. Thank you so much for your time.